The Wyatt Six story just took a deep turn this week, so we'll see what could be new there. We'll also check out what's going on with Liv Morgan, Goldberg, and more. Starting things off with the new developments for the Wyatts. The Wyatts returned a few weeks back to try and capture The Miz. The Miz was able to sneak away for a week, but was still then ultimately captured by the Wyatt Six. So the November 4th edition of Raw showed The Miz being tied up to a chair and held captive by Uncle Howdy. The Miz has his mouth taped shut and has a blacked-out Uncle Howdy mask on his face. The Miz makes his case by telling Bo Dallas that he has nothing to do with the Final Testament and how they're the ones he actually wants. But that's when Bo Dallas makes his own big reveal and says that the Wyatts never cared about the Final Testament, that this was always just about The Miz. We then see flashbacks of The Miz short-lived faction with Curtis Axel and Bo Dallas back from 2017. This faction came into existence after The Miz and his wife were having some issues. So The Miz turned to Axel and Dallas to stand by his side and how he'll make them big stars in return for their help. But in mid-2018, The Miz would leave Raw for SmackDown and left Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel behind, never truly living up to the promise he made them in exchange for their help for all those months. So it appears that even though fans might forgot about that faction, Bo Dallas never forgot about it and is now holding The Miz accountable for his lies from even all the way back then. So you have The Miz's 2017 situation, his recent betrayal of R-Truth, and now the current situation with the Final Testament. It's just the perfect recipe to catch the Wyatt Six attention, and that's exactly what has happened. Towards the end of the Miz captive segment, Dexter Lumis can be seen coming up from behind The Miz. And even that right there is a bit of a callback to previous storylines. So Dexter Lumis made his return to the company a few years ago, and the first thing he did was stalk The Miz and go after him. And at the time, there were a lot of fan theories about if Dexter was quietly working with Bray Wyatt during that story of stalking The Miz. And now here we are 2 years later, and in a strange way, those Dexter Lumis and Bray Wyatt theories became true. So now Dexter Lumis even gets to put his hands on one of his old rivals as a Wyatt family member. As of this moment, the Wyatts still have The Miz captive, and obviously they're holding him at an unknown location. So it seems unlikely to see the Final Testament rescue him from where he's being held at. It seems more likely that Bo Dallas will dump The Miz back at Raw once they're finished with him, and maybe that's when The Miz runs back to the Final Testament with all the intel. Another interesting thing to point out about this captive segment with the Wyatt Six is that it just so happened to interrupt and cut off a segment with the New Day. So you gotta wonder if that was intentional as well. So the New Day appears to be ready to implode, and if it's Woods who betrays Kofi, you just have to assume that the Wyatts will come after him once the actual deed is done itself. So it's some great foreshadowing to see Wyatt-related segments interrupting what's happening with the New Day right now. Very big sign that the Wyatts could wrap things up pretty quickly with The Miz and head over to pay Woods a visit when he eventually pulls off that evil act. It appears that Goldberg's Bad Blood appearance and face-off with Gunther did have a lot of significance behind it after all. During a recent college football program, Goldberg officially announced that he will be competing in his final retirement match in 2025. Goldberg didn't provide any further details besides the year 2025, but he did heavily imply that Gunther is the front runner to be his final opponent. So when you take that fact into consideration, it's really looking like Goldberg versus Gunther has a strong shot of happening in 2025, and it will be Goldberg's last ever match. Goldberg has been very vocal in recent years that he was promised by Vince McMahon that he was going to have one last retirement match, but it never happened. So there was even a period there where it seemed like Goldberg was heading over to Tony Khan to have his final matchup, but those talks allegedly fell through. So it's looking very strongly again that Goldberg is having his long-awaited final match for World Wrestling Entertainment. Gunther has been very vocal about wanting a dream match with Brock Lesnar, but that match is up in the air due to the uncertainty surrounding Brock's name right now. So if the Brock Lesnar match is impossible for Gunther to have, then the match with Goldberg will be a very solid replacement for sure. Be on the lookout for some more appearances from Goldberg in 2025, which will be all topped off with his final retirement match. But it looks like the company is opening up the door to a potential historic direction for Liv Morgan and the Judgment Day. Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair came out to confront Liv Morgan and Rodriguez on Raw. They exchanged heavy blows with each other. Liv Morgan said that Bianca and Jade are only pretending to get along, how they both believe that they're better than the other, and how the tag team titles are the only thing keeping them together. And Liv's words can be seen as just spiteful heel talk, but there could be some truth there to what she's saying there. Bianca and Jade make for a great tag team, but is either of them letting their minds venture off into thinking about a singles run? And can they really continue to coexist after they lose the tag team titles? It's some pretty solid points there from Liv Morgan. But just a few moments later, and Liv ends up ruining Jade and Bianca's chances in the Battle Royal match. So with their show opening conversation and the big moment of costing them the match, it looks like they're officially teasing a tag team titles match between Bianca and Jade versus Liv and Rodriguez. This would be a massive match for the Judgment Day because it gives them the prime opportunity to do something that has never been done before, and that's have a faction hold both the men's and women's tag team titles at the same time. So if Liv Morgan and Rodriguez find a way to defeat them for the women's tag team titles, the Judgment Day will just have a ridiculous amount of gold. They'll be in possession of the women's world title, the men's tag titles, and now the women's tag team titles. The Judgment Day was always being looked at as one of the greatest factions ever because of the huge success they had in 2023. But if the group is able to pull this off and bring all those titles back to the Judgment Day, then they'll really be distancing themselves from the rest of the historic factions in history. And even individually for Liv Morgan, this win would be huge. You're talking about Liv holding the world title, she just won the Crown Jewel title, and now she could be one half of the tag team champions too. That will obviously really top off this career year for Liv Morgan in general. And for Bianca and Jade, losing their titles will be the ultimate test for them. They already lost their tag team titles once, and to their credit, they held it together and climbed back to win them again. So if they lose the titles for a second time, you gotta assume that their mentality will be not to stress it because they can get them right back. But maybe after a while they'll realize that they're struggling more than ever and they can't climb back into the women's tag team title scene this time around. And maybe that's when we'll start seeing the cracks in the tag team. The big popular fan dream match is to see Jade Cargill versus Bianca Belair at WrestleMania 41. So depending on how they lose the tag team titles and what happens after that, that'll really determine if we'll see that dream match take place in 2025. But what are your thoughts on today's stories? Leave your comments below, don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.